Multiculturalism has failed. Chancellor Angela Merkel's bleak assessment of attempts to integrate immigrants into German society. Whilst she admits Germany needs immigration, Merkel's comments are likely to add momentum to a growing wave of nationalism seen to be spreading throughout Europe. So what's causing this rise in anti-immigrant feeling? Should immigrants be forced to better integrate? And will it make any difference? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Laura Kyle. Speaking to a meeting of young members of her Christian Democratic Union party on Saturday, the German Chancellor Angela Merkel said attempts to build a multicultural society in Germany have utterly failed. She said foreigners should be integrated rather than accommodated. Nazanin Moshiri has the details.
This marks a new direction in Germany's immigration debate. Her tone was measured and her words tough. Angela Merkel told young members of her party, integration isn't working.
Und jetzt leben Sie bei uns. Wir haben uns eine Weile lang in die Tasche gelogen.
We lied to ourselves for a while. We said they won't stay so long, one day they'll be gone. This is not the reality. Of course, the multicultural approach is to live here side by side and be happy about each other. This approach has failed, utterly failed.
There are 4 million people of Turkish descent in Germany, half of them full citizens. Her message to them a lot softer. Immigrants are welcome, but they must fit in.
Integration is so important. So it is, above all, that those who want to participate in our society must not only comply with the law and adhere to the constitution, but above all must learn our language. To learn our language, to know our language.
Angela Merkel is in a difficult place right now. With an election in the spring, opinion polls show many Germans see Muslims as a burden on the economy. But the country also has a shortfall of skilled labour, crucial to the success of that economy. In the coming weeks and months, the German leader will have to accommodate both sides of the debate. Nazanin Moshiri, Al Jazeera.
Well, the German Chancellor's speech has added fuel to an immigration debate in Germany that's been growing rather heated in recent months. It all kicked off with Thilo Sarrazin, the then senior official at Germany's central bank, who said no immigrant group other than Muslims is so strongly connected with claims on the welfare state and crime. Mr. Sarrazin has since resigned from his post, but his words, it seems, do reflect a deep-seated fear found amongst many Germans. A recent study by German think tank the Friedrich Ebert Foundation found nearly a third of respondents believing that foreigners come to abuse the welfare state and that Germany is overrun by immigrants. The same study suggests 55% of the country thinks Muslims are a burden on their economy. This is a good topic for discussion, and here to help us do it in Berlin, Alexander Margier, editor of Cicero magazine, and in London, Nabila Ramdani, a French journalist and political commentator. Thank you both very much for joining us. Alexander Margier, if I could start with you, it does seem that Chancellor Angela Merkel's comments may be well received by many Germans. Is she correct in saying that multiculturalism has utterly failed?
Well, first of all, this is nothing really new. To be honest, it's very old. I mean, we've been talking about multiculturalism and about how it failed since years, and it depends on what multiculturalism means. You know, if multiculturalism means that anyone can come and do whatever he wants does not, and we have people who don't comply with the laws. So this is, if multiculturalism is this kind of thing that we're talking about, then of course it has failed. But on the other hand, we have many nations, people from many nations living in this country, and this goes very well, you know, especially, look, I'm here in Berlin. We have a part of town called Kreuzberg. This is like the multi-culti part of town. You have a big Turkish community, but people from nations all over the world, and there's obviously no riots going on. So, I mean, what is it if you say multiculturalism has failed? To me, it seems to be working very well. Of course, we have problems, but to say multiculturalism has failed is really nothing new, and it's more or less, it's a stupid sentence.
Well, the Chancellor appears to be referring to people living happily side by side. But it does appear, looking at that study, that there is quite a lot of antagonism in German society against immigrants, with 30% of them, nearly a third, feeling crowded out by new arrivals.
Well, you know, this is always difficult, these kind of polls. We've had this discussion. You mentioned Thilo Sarrazin's book, and we've been talking about this now very hardly and very harshly for a couple of weeks, almost 2 months, and by repeating and repeating the bad feelings that this Mr. Sarrazin obviously has towards some parts of immigrants, leads to the fact that many people who are not in touch at all with these people feel alienated. So this is a classical media thing too, you know.
So you're saying that German people are not interested in this discussion at this point in time? It's purely a political ploy?
Well, no, I think they are interested, but look, if you ask someone out in the countryside with no neighbors from other nations, and what he sees is the discussion that we are having here. So his feeling must be, God, in big cities it must be like hell, and it must be really incredible. So he thinks that the situation is much worse than it in fact it is.
Nabila Ramdani, if I can ask you, what does multiculturalism mean to you, and do you think it's failing in Germany?
Well, first of all, being from a French background, I have to say that the French model of integration, known also as the model of assimilation, is what makes France unique, and it's not in line with the thinking across the European Union. When the European Union promotes a model of multiculturalism, i.e. unity and diversity, the French model stresses equality and doesn't allow room for the expression of differences. And so what it means is that French citizens are expected to be French only, and there is no room for multiple identities or hyphenated identities. And a clear example of that was during the World Cup, the Football World Cup over the summer, when young French people of Algerian descent were supporting the Algerian team. They were reprimanded by the state and branded as being disloyal and not being patriotic enough. So that's the French model as it stands. And in this respect, the French have often criticized other EU countries, including Britain and Germany, for allowing the expression of or the manifestation of foreign cultures too much.
Mr. Marger, with these calls for better integration, are you sensing that German politicians at least want to move towards the French model?
No, I don't think so. I mean, what does Angela Merkel want to say by that? She says multiculturalism has failed, but what she really wants to say is that people who come from abroad to this country have to do mainly two things, or let me say three things. First of all, they have to learn the language. They have to know the German language. This is absolutely clear, and there's no doubt about it. Secondly, they have to comply with the laws that we have here, and they have to comply with democracy. And then, third point is they should try to find a job. You know, they can't come here and like claim put claims on the welfare state. These are the 3 points that she was trying to say, and I think that most people do totally agree with that.
Ms. Ramdani, those do seem pretty fair points. Do you agree?
I think it's absolutely conditional for integration to work to indeed master the language and be a law-abiding citizens. But I would claim that the vast majority of immigrants in Germany do master the language and are law-abiding citizens. What the German government obviously failed to deal with are blatant discriminations and instances of racism, which are a clear hindrance for immigrants or young people of foreign background to integrate into German society properly.
If most people are learning German, Mr. Marger, why these calls for better integration?
Because it's a fact that many people don't speak good. I mean, some speak German, but many of them don't speak a very good German. And the second thing is that, I mean, this is mostly a discussion that focuses on the Islam, you know, and we have people coming here from Muslim countries who put like Islam first, and then comes the law and the national law. And this is, of course, this is totally. You can't live with that as a society. This is impossible. I mean, talking about Islam is also in talking about Islam in Germany is talking about the Sharia. Is the Sharia first or our national laws first? And a couple. I mean, the vast majority is putting the laws first, of course. But we have people coming from abroad who believe in the Sharia first, and this is unacceptable.
Nabila Ramdani, a lot of this debate does focus on Muslims in Europe. Do you think it's a fair point that Muslims should put aside parts of their religion in favour of the norms in the society they're entering?
I think it's a fair point to also to allow the expression of religion within any society and not suppress it. So that's, a starting point. Now, there's an interesting study which was carried out by the Open Society Institute looking at the situation of Muslims across 11 European countries. Britain topped the chart by showing that 86% of Muslims in Britain felt British first and then Muslim. So that says something about how British Muslims feel, about, their citizenship and how seriously they're taking it. It also says something about the state of society at large, meaning that there are indeed very strong anti-discrimination bodies in the UK and very strong anti-discrimination policies which are being enforced and which tackle, serious cases of discrimination which are facing the Muslim community in particular. So I think that is something that governments across the EU need to address very seriously. And for example, in France, President Sarkozy repeatedly made keynote speeches where references were constantly made to the white Christian community, and by definition excluding everything that's black, foreign or indeed Muslim, meaning that these elements do not fit in within the French model. And we've heard similar speeches across Europe as an attempt to exclude any Muslim legacy within the European Union, and that is absolutely the recognition of the Muslim legacy in the European Union is crucial to make Muslims feel part of the European Union and at home.
Okay, Mr. Marger, your response to that?
Okay, but totally. Look, what she said, what Angela Merkel said, I mean, she made the point about multiculturalism, but she made a second point, and this is a very, very important point. She asked the question, is the Islam part of Germany? And the answer was yes. It was not no. She said, she totally made this point. Islam does belong to Germany, and what she wanted to say is the Muslim people who live here, who feel as Germans, they totally are part of this country, and this is what she said.
Okay, I just want to broaden this out a little bit, because in recent months this issue of immigration has leapt to the forefront of European politics. In its official statistics, the UN claims that immigration into Europe is on the rise. Europe is home to more than 730 million people. 9.5% of them are immigrants. Let's take a closer look at where most of those people are migrating to. Spain tops the list. Of its population of 40 million, 14.1% are immigrants. Germany follows with 13.1% of its 80 million people. Of the United Kingdom's 60 million, 10.4% are originally from overseas, whilst in France, which has 64 million people, 10.7% are immigrants. And in Italy, just 7.4% of its 60 million people are from overseas. Nabila Ramdani, the numbers don't appear to be huge. So why are we seeing such a strong wave of anti-immigrant feeling in Europe?
Well, you're quite right to emphasize that. In my opinion, it's a well-known tactic that when governments fail to provide real solutions for economic and social problems, they are prompt to conjure up the spectre, the fantasy spectre of immigrants, foreigners in general, who are to be blamed for all the social, economic and political ills of society. And this has been the case very strongly in France when, on repeated occasions, President Sarkozy has been targeting various ethnic minority groups. The latest episode is the rounding up and deportation of the Roma community, ignoring all EU laws and warnings from human rights organisations like Amnesty International. The French government still went ahead and deported, EU citizens who are perfectly free to move in the European Union. It has also targeted ethnic minority groups like Afghans who have been deported back home to a war zone. Now the French government wants to expel immigrant criminals and send them back home, and more shockingly, it now wants to extend its policy to French nationals, French young people of foreign background who are caught breaking the law to be deprived of their citizenship. And this targeting of specific ethnic group has led to resentment among the French public, and a recent poll shows that 50% of the French public think that immigrants are too different to be integrated.
Alexander Marget, immigrants being used as a scapegoat for the problems in societies?
Well, let me answer the question that you were asking. I mean, obviously, you said there's not much immigration going on, but we're talking about immigration that has already happened, And this is the point in Germany. We've had immigration since about 50 years, and like 40 years, we thought, and that was quite the policy of all the governments we had in Germany, was that those people would go back somewhere. And this is why we defined ourselves, this country, we defined ourselves as a non-immigration republic. Now this has changed in a very fast way, and now we're trying to say to those people that we thought they would go back, we're trying to tell them, but look, no, we found out you're not going back. Now you have to integrate very, very quickly. And this, of course, I mean, this is hard to them too, for sure.
And of course, it's a very difficult message you're sending, because Europe does need immigrants. It's got a declining birth rate. A lot of the companies need the skilled workers. And yet you're saying that these people have to give up certain parts of their identity if they want to come here. So it's hard for countries such as Germany to have it both ways.
It's not about giving up the identity. It's just about being willing to accept the identities of the countries that you move to. But the other thing is, yes, we need immigration, and this is one of the big failures of this country, of Germany, that we have not defined who do we want to have. I'm totally convinced that we need a strict immigration law to define who do we need, who are the people, where should they come from. This makes it easier for those people too. This makes it much easier for the immigrants if we make sure first that they are able to find a job here.
Nabila Ramdani, do you agree that places such as Germany and France, by adopting the policies, having these sort of debates, do remain attractive for people who might want to come?
Absolutely, and they remain very attractive indeed. But it also has to be said that they are looking to countries like, immigrants are looking to countries like France and Germany precisely because they are, known for their tradition of welcoming people from, all over the world and, being tolerant societies. But the current mood in Europe is one of, Islamophobia and racism and discrimination at the moment. And it makes it more difficult for people to blend in.
It does seem as well to be targeted against towards unskilled migrants, but really isn't it the unskilled migrants who need to come in to do the jobs that people originally in the country aren't prepared to do?
It's very clear that French nationals or British nationals or German nationals, some of them are not willing to take up jobs that immigrants are more than happy to do, and there's a real need and there's a real demand for that. And if you are to invite people to take up jobs, then you have to make sure that they feel comfortable and at home in the host country as well.
Mr. Marger, are you not a little concerned that these kinds of comments from Angela Merkel, the debate that's happening, is going to stir up quite a fervour when it comes to immigration?
I don't think so. I think the discussion will end pretty soon. I mean, we've had this discussion now on a very, very high level for a couple of weeks. As I told you, I don't think it's going to go on like this for months and ages.
And Nabila Ramdani, do you think multiculturalism is really achievable?
I think the fundamental problem is the discrimination, really. And I don't think there's, a model that would suit, every single country in the European Union. We obviously each have our own history and our own societies, and one has to see what fits better, what suits better accordingly. But it seems to me that the problem of discrimination and racism are the most prominent one and are indeed flaming up social problems as well, and they need to be tackled very seriously.
What in your mind is a workable model?
A model that would make sure to respect that people can have multiple identities. They do not have to come in and drop their cultural baggage or leave it, leave their roots behind them. It has to be a combination of taking on your new citizenship and be serious about it by speaking the language, abide by the law, but also the host society has to take into account that you have a past, you have a history, you have a culture, and that indeed there is room for it. And it accepts it as well.
Okay, it certainly will be a topic that Europe-wide will be discussed for some time yet, but that for the moment we'll have to leave it there. Thank you both very much for joining us. In London, Nabila Ramdani, and in Berlin, Alexander Marger. And thanks to you for watching as well. We always welcome your input, and you can drop us a line at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Bye for now.